Welcome to the Project Violet podcast. My name is Daniel Lay.
And I am Carrie Maselli.
Carrie, we are talking about getting triggered this morning. Woo!
It happened moments ago. No,
Yeah. A little off-camera triggers that we discussed. Anyway, yeah, we're
not each
talking about
other. Not each
not
other,
each
though.
other. Yes, yes.
We're in a safe space.
We're No, it is actually nice kind of venting with you. I appreciate that.
Well, yeah, we have to sometimes.
Yes, it's good to yeah, have someone to go to vent a little so that you can get back in a good place and get
Uh-huh.
back to the podcast. Here we are.
For sure. We're here.
All
What
right,
are we
so
talking about
we're talking
today?
about personal triggers, and we kicked it off in the community. We had a poll, and I'm
Hmm.
just pulling it up right now. The question that we submitted to the community was, which situation is most likely to trigger you at work? We had four options, and I'll read them through and give the percentages.
Hmm.
So, being challenged or questioned, does that trigger anyone? Apparently zero, 0%.
I'm surprised by that.
The other one's not so much. So the second one is lack of clarity or direction. So 29% of the people who submitted said that was what triggered them. The next one was feeling ignored or not heard. That was 14%. I
Mhm.
believe you were in that category, right?
That's me. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Got it. All right. And
Yep.
then the last one, which I voted for, which got 57% of the vote, was they are triggered by last minute changes or surprises.
Hmm.
So if you're in the community and you're listening to this, please head over to the poll and submit your response. Would love to see if the
Hmm.
percentages changes. But right now, the winner is last minute changes or surprises was the big
Yes.
winner this
And
week.
we can talk about that, but I want to start with, you mentioned that feeling ignored, or what was the wording exactly in the poll? Feeling ignored
Feeling ignored or not heard.
or not heard. In my mind, I hear dismissed too. Like
Mm.
that's was a major trigger for me. So I want to start by telling like a little story about triggers specifically and what I did to really take back control of that situation. So a trigger, just so we're level setting with the group, Daniel, a trigger is something like a person or an event that creates an extreme emotional reaction in us. And one of the things that we wanted to be mindful of as people who are navigating, the world and moving through the world and interacting with other people, that these triggers are never about the other thing. It's always about what's going on inside of us. And so one of the things I noticed about myself, I would say probably within the last decade, I know that feels like a long time, but stay with me. Like, so within the last decade, I realized that I was working with really, in fact, you're in this group too of men, and it's not like a male bashing thing at all, but you're in this group of where I was working with really kind um, male colleagues, who were interested in what I had to say, who were really were asking me questions and engaging with me in meetings or in situations where my opinion was valued, and I still was on edge, and even the slightest perceived like the tiniest perceived slight from any man that I was working with over the last, let's say like, I guess it is about 9 years. Um, I would get really worked up and feel incredibly triggered by this, whether it was a client, whether it was someone I was working with internally, and always male. So I thought to myself, what is this about? Like, why am I getting so pissed? And that would be my reaction, right? I'd get pissed, I'd lash out, or I'd shut down something, like that's not productive at all. And I would often behave in a way that I regretted. And I didn't like that. I like to minimize regret if I can. And so I thought, what is going on with this? Like, why am I having such a hard time? These men I work with are lovely, right? Like I'm choosing to work with these guys. Like they want to hear what I have to say. And I started to really unpack it. And this is the key. Like when we're feeling some sort of emotional reaction to something, especially when it's extreme, the goal is to name it first, right? So like I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling dismissed, I'm feeling hurt, whatever it is that you feel in those moments. And then you really need to ask yourself why until you get to understanding what's behind it. So I kept asking myself why, and it feels silly, or like when I say that, it might seem silly to somebody. You'd be like, I just keep asking why, but you sit with it and you ask yourself, like, why am I feeling this way? And you almost like you have to go back and find the thing that's inside of you, right? That's causing this reaction because it's not that external thing ever. And so I started thinking about, my whole career leading up to when I went into L&D, my whole career prior to that was in sales and sales leadership. And not to bash anybody who's in sales. Listen, I It was a great career. I loved it. I still do sales today, in a different way. But I worked in a pretty male dominated environments for a long time. And I was at the end of my sales career, I was the only female manager or leader, sales leader in the room. And I was never given a chance to share anything that made, that would add any sort of value to anything. I mean, especially at the end, I worked with men who just were interested in hearing themselves talk and they didn't care what I had to say, or they would like rib me and pick on me in these meetings. And then as soon as I would try to fire back, it's something that like, just felt like a jab their way in this like playful way that they were coming at me. I'd get the whole like, whoa, Carrie, calm down, relax, like chill out. That's not necessary. Like this whole crazy, like almost gaslighting. Right. And so when you grow up in that environment, I spent 17 years in sales and for me personally, this is my own story, right? Like this is not necessarily everybody's experience, but I was in this environment where it was really not only ingrained in me that what I had to say wasn't valuable or that I had to like climb Mount Everest to be able to share something that I felt was, appropriate to the conversation or some idea that might, solve whatever problem we were trying to solve. But like, I got to a point where it was just, it affected my pride. It affected my ego, even though ego is tricky. Like it still is it's a factor, right? In how we show up. And if we don't feel valued, that can really, your self-esteem can take a hit, your self-worth, your, uh, all of it, right, can take a hit. And so it wasn't until I really, it was like a light bulb went off, truly, like that cheesy, like, like what, that I realized like I had been conditioned all those years, to just like brace myself for that behavior. So then following that, even when I worked with men who were, again, collaborative and curious about what I had to say, I was always on edge and would get so offended at the slightest little, dismissive behavior. Does that make sense?
Yeah. A
What do
couple
you think
questions.
about
So
that?
is yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that story.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people are going through that. If was it just when men did it, or
Yeah.
would when like did you ever experience where a woman in the meeting did kind of the same behavior to, or did you never experience that?
I've not
Oh,
experienced that to my knowledge, right? I mean, sure, I just
okay.
don't think women behave that way generally.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
but again, like unique to me, right? Like I think
Yeah.
for me, it was specifically my male colleagues. I just think it was so many years, right? Of
Is that
that.
something you still not struggle with, or do you still get triggered by that occasionally?
I can, but the real work and the beauty of the work that I've done in understanding it, because that's the key, right? Like the goal is to never try to eliminate the trigger, Daniel, because that's really, we're not going to do that. Like, why would we set ourselves up for some sort of
Mm,
familiar? Like we're human, we're triggered, our context of our day or our situation will affect that too. Like if you're lack of sleep, all that. But the
mm,
idea is if we understand it, then we can pause and take back control, right? We're then in the driver's seat when it comes to how we respond.
mhm,
That's the self-regulation. So the self-awareness of emotional intelligence is, let me understand my emotion, let me name it, and then let me try to figure out why I'm behaving this way or reacting this way. And then self-regulation is, let me pause and let me decide how I'm going to react so that I can minimize regret. And I think so certainly I can be triggered again in that way, but it holds so much less power over me that I have the ability to pause and be like, this isn't about that. This is not about this person. It's not about that. I can decide to just like roll with it and let it go.
Is there something in the moment that you catch that you go, "Oh, I'm being triggered right now, so I need to take a pause." Is it a
I think it's
physical?
visceral. I think it's a physical, generally for
Oh,
me, it's a physical like reaction.
mm,
Like when we
okay.
feel triggered, like that emotion is heightened, whatever it feels like, right? It's like frustrated, embarrassed, um, embarrassment is a big one, I think, for a lot of people. Like that maybe it doesn't, maybe they don't name that right away, but if they really sit with it, it's like, oh, I was feeling embarrassed because of what
Yeah.
happened. Or let's talk about even the what was in the community, the change last minute changing of plans.
Last minute changes or surprises. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe somebody came up in a like super chaotic environment where things like they felt so out of control, or maybe even at home. I know that we're not therapists, but this notion that they lived in and grew up in a home that was always changing, or plans were changing, and kids have very little agency anyway. But then if someone's just yanking them around and changing things and they don't know what to expect, that could inform how they are triggered at work.
Yeah, that was one I responded to, and I tried to do a quick kind of understanding the trigger,
Yeah.
or
What do
asking
you
the
think?
why,
Yeah.
and it was very quick. But where I landed was I don't like being taken advantage of,
Okay.
and when someone shows up or makes a last minute change, it feels like they are t taking advantage of me in a way, or not respecting my time and the effort that I've put in, and they're being selfish in a way
Sure.
that kind of rubs me the wrong way. So
It's
to
very
me,
inconsiderate to not
yeah,
like create this.
inconsiderate, yeah,
Yes.
and I think, yeah, when I got to the bottom of it, was like I don't like being taken advantage of in a way, and maybe there's a couple more whys below that I
I
need to get
guarantee there
to.
are. I'm not going to make you do that right
Yeah,
now in this live podcast, but I
yeah,
guarantee there's more layers there for you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of the layer I got to, but that's kind of part of the process of me figuring that one out.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, like, when you always hear people say, like, as they age, right? Like each decade gets better. And I believe that, so like what's connected to that is this idea of greater self-awareness and self-regulation, like where you know yourself even more, because that's the work we're doing, right? We're trying to understand ourselves again, not try to eliminate uh because that's really just not a great goal, but just understanding why we're reacting the way that we are. It creates, just like our core values, it creates this sense of calm and assuredness. Is that a word? Assuredness.
Yeah.
It creates this sense, right, that we're like, oh, okay, I've got this, like I'm standing a little taller. I have a little more confidence in who I am because I have a greater understanding.
Absolutely. I think understanding, you said before, naming it is
Naming it.
a great way to get some more power or agency back in your life of, okay, I know what this is.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm reacting a certain way, and just it allows you to kind of take a step back and look at yourself and say, okay, I know what's going on here. I have the tools or the strategies to deal with this, or I
Yeah.
know I have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought about when you said that about naming it, one just piece of information that I think might be helpful for people is that often when we sit with something or we're triggered, the first thought we have is that I'm angry, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
we're feeling. But what we know to be true in this world of emotional intelligence, right, and emotions in general, is that anger is often a secondary emotion,
Mm.
meaning it's what you feel because you're frustrated, you're embarrassed, you feel taken advantage of. So like it's really about going that layer down and saying, okay, well, yeah, I'm acting angry, I'm feeling angry, I'm acting in an angry way, maybe I'm raising my voice at somebody, or I, stomping around, I don't know. I don't know what people do when they're angry, but it's really like, why am I angry? Like you got to ask yourself, like, why am I angry? Oh, because I feel really embarrassed, or I'm anxious
Hmm.
about this thing that's coming, and that it just comes out as angry. Like there's something sitting below the anger most of the time
Yeah.
for people.
Yeah. So there's three things that we want to go through today, and I think we've already touched on a lot of them, but maybe
Oh, yeah.
we can get tactical here and t go through each one. So what we want to talk about today was identifying your triggers, understanding your triggers, and then talk about some management strategies, which I think we
Mm-hmm.
already touched on.
Yeah.
So to kind of recap the identifying your triggers, how did you come to the point of identifying yours? Was it someone confronted you about it, or was it just internally you kept thinking, "Oh, I keep getting angry and I want to figure out why." Like it was part of a weekly reflection that you did. How would you recommend people identify their triggers?
Yeah. I think it's important for me personally. It was just, I didn't like how I was feeling. And I thought, and I also, coupled with, and this makes me lucky in this way, I had to learn a lot about emotional intelligence because of the work I was doing. So I was studying and learning about emotional intelligence and how to be more self-aware, how to self-regulate, at a more successful rate, and thinking, oh, wait a second, I'm also behaving in this way. Like, what better way than to apply it to my own life and self to better understand? And so it really did. It was just cosmic, I guess, the timing of it all. Like this notion that I had this tool that I was learning about because I was curious, and then I also had clients asking, for this type of content. And then I thought, okay, well, let me just try this. And I was really sick of feeling dismissed or like, or even this notion that I was, even though it wasn't happening. And it just really, there's a lot I had to unpack from those years. Let me just tell you, it wasn't just this one piece, but that, yeah, the asking the why, right? So identifying, you're asking the identify piece. So the catalyst was I was learning about it myself. So I thought, why not try it? And then identify is truly just what am I feeling in this moment? I'm starting to, we all know when we're feeling like heightened,
Hmm.
right? And, joy isn't, it's a negative heightened emotion, right? Joy is one thing, but like that's not really where we're behaving in a regrettable way, like when we feel joy. So it's when I'm feeling this heightened emotion, stop and say the pause is our friend in all of these situations. It's what am I feeling? And I would say like remove yourself from the situation if you can. Take a walk, go get a coffee, whatever, right? Like just get out of wherever you're feeling because you're gonna, give yourself that space to think about this. But then identifying is really just saying, I am feeling X.
Yeah.
It's
I
that
think,
simple.
yeah, I think we all know when we're getting triggered. There's
Mm-hmm.
moments where,
You should know.
yeah, and maybe even if it's as easy as, hey, I like when you always talk about spending time and reflecting and
Yeah.
putting time aside every week to reflect. And I think when you're in a moment where you're feeling anger or you feel like you're triggered, take a note of it. Like you said, remove yourself if you can, but if you can't, try to power through it. But at the end of the week, reflect on those moments where you
Mm-hmm.
were angry or you felt triggered, and then move to the next step, which is trying to understand those triggers. So I think
Mm-hmm.
number one, you have to spend time reflecting every week or even
Yeah.
in the day if you felt triggered multiple times, carve out some time to reflect on that
Mm-hmm.
and then identify those situations and kind of outline what was going on in that moment is probably the best way to, in my mind, to identify the trigger, number one.
Yes.
And then,
That's great advice.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then number two, you already touched on this and you ran right into it, is understanding your trigger is asking all the whys. Like,
Yeah.
why did I get angry? Because it's anger is not the root cause of whatever it is. There's
No.
always layers below it, and asking
Mm-hmm.
yourself why, maybe 5 times to get to some level of deeper understanding.
Really deep in there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. Deep down. Again, like it's not about the external thing. It's not about the person. I mean, maybe you dislike the person, so they behave in a way that triggers you, but why? Again, why? Like,
Yeah.
what is it about? Because maybe, like, if you behaved in some way that, well, I trust you, right? And I like working with you. So I'm always going to default to giving you the benefit of the doubt. So that it's not going to have that you might behave in a way that triggers me when someone else I don't like behaves that way. You've
Mhm.
probably even heard me talk about examples of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're quick to give someone the benefit of the doubt when we trust them and we like them.
Mm.
So what is it about? And maybe, we tell ourselves it's because I don't like that other person, but no, that's not it.
Yeah.
Right? It's why?
Yep.
Why am I acting this way when this person does this or says this?
Would you recommend talking to people about it? Or was this kind of a personal self-exploratory journey for you?
I'm always a fan of conversation. You know this. Like
Hmm.
I force you to talk to me every day about
Yes, you
things.
do.
But I in this particular exercise, I think it's self-reflection. I think it's sitting with it. I think it's understanding it. I think if you get to a place where you understand it, you name the emotion, you understand the trigger, you might then go to someone you trust to say, I've noticed I'm being triggered in this particular scenario. This often comes up in this one meeting that we're in. Like, can you help me in these moments? If this person's in the meeting, right? It could just be, or maybe it's your spouse and you're like, hey, we're going somewhere where this situation triggers me.
Mm.
Like, just grab my hand or give me like, you can lean on people you trust to help you. But I think that the act of identifying it, like naming, like identify, what is the second thing we said?
Understanding it.
Understand, like that has to come
Mm.
from you.
Got it. Got it. I love it. So understanding has to be really a self-exploratory journey where you're asking yourself why, getting to the deep root cause of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you've done that work, then it makes sense to maybe go out and get some feedback from other people on it if you want. But you have to do that hard work yourself.
You know what I like to think
That-
about?
Mhm.
Sorry, I just cut
Yeah.
you off.
No.
I think about it's like the trigger, the why of the trigger is like a vampire, like living in the basement, like in deep inside you. And the only way we know to kill a vampire is to bring it out into the sun. And so when you can uncover,
I
like
was
it's
gonna
like
say
you're
eat
ripping that
garlic.
vampire out into the sun so it just shrivels up and you're not
Yeah.
scared of it
When you shine
anymore.
light on stuff, it
Yeah.
it helps.
Uh-huh.
I like that.
Yeah.
So going to the third one,
Yes.
management strategies. Do you have any? You talked about one of them, bringing your partner in, maybe giving you, a tap on the back or a squeeze of the hand when you're in
Hmm.
those triggered moments. But what are other tips or tricks, especially in the workplace, if you're getting triggered? What do you do?
Hmm. I think it's always my advice. So the pause is our friend. We know this, right? As soon as we start to feel something, we have to pause. Like we cannot react in that moment because chances are there's high probability we're going to regret our behavior. And so it's the pause, but then I always want to just get myself out of the situation if I
Mhm.
can, right? So, and we can talk about what you do if you can't, but if I feel triggered, or maybe I'm in the middle of a meeting and I've got 15 minutes left in this meeting, it's that power of the pause. Maybe it's a 15-minute pause to be like, okay. And then as soon as that meeting's done, get up, move your body, walk, do something that takes you away from that space. Because the more removed we are from it, the better, right?
Mhm.
In these moments. And then that's where you might lean on somebody to be like, oh my God, I just had this conversation and it just really triggered me. And this is what I'm feeling. And oh my gosh. And like you started off, I mean, this is serendipitous and we didn't even plan it. It was like the venting piece, right? Like that you talked about when we kicked off the conversation. When you have somebody you could just kind of unload on, be like, listen to what just happened. That feels good. You almost like sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah, a little
And then you don't feel
cathartic.
like reacting anymore because it's just, like
Yeah.
space from it is going to be helpful. Understanding it deeply is the long-term solution, but
Hmm.
space from it in the moment is better. And ask for what you need too.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a conversation that's really hard, you're getting some feedback that's really hard to hear. It's like, can I take a
Yeah.
moment, please?
Yeah. And there's always graceful ways to exit
Mm-hmm.
almost in any situation. But say you can't, what would you say?
I almost like disassociate. I mean, I think if you're in a meeting and you can't leave, like you can't go to the bathroom, you can't do anything, you're stuck there.
Hmm.
Um, I would almost like most of us have like some sort of notebook, and I'm thinking about this in like real time. So
Yeah.
this may not be helpful for people, but most of us have a notebook or something that we're taking notes on when we're in a meeting. I would start to maybe write down like I'm feeling this. I like do that like to get yourself into where you're naming it in the moment.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
That's a good, I'm thinking right now,
Yeah.
I do think there is a way to recenter and not redirect, but recenter the conversation. So
Hmm.
most of these are happening in a conversation, I'm assuming.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
Although
Yeah.
you can be triggered in an environment as well. But I'm thinking if you're having a conversation, you're being triggered by what someone's saying, definitely you identify it, you kind of deal with it as quickly as you can internally, and then try to redirect the conversation to the problem or
Yes. Yeah.
focus on solving. Like for me, I love solving problems, and
Yes.
maybe just redirecting the conversation to solving the problem will be just a good way to get out of that situation or to at least get through the situation.
And it's a quick like, okay, just so I understand what we're talking about. And it's like a confirming, like, to
Yeah.
like center it back, right? That's a quick, like, okay, everybody, if we could take a pause, it's almost like forcing a pause and then
Yeah.
saying, like, this is what I
Force
understand we're trying to solve for.
I like that.
Am
Force
I
the
right?
pause. Yeah. And then redirect it to where you want it to go so that you have some agency there.
There's some sort of, yeah, productivity there. And then you can deal with it on your own time in your reflection
Yeah.
later to where, again, the whole point is that we're just taking back power from the trigger.
Hmm.
Like the trigger's not going to be in charge anymore. We
Exactly.
want to be in charge.
Yep. So I guess the main strategy is the power of the pause.
Yes,
Um,
always.
Start with that and
Hmm.
then go from there.
Enforce it if you have to.
But yeah, this is a great. I mean, we can leave it open ended, and I'm
Yes,
sure people in the community have their own strategies and tips on how to deal with this, and
yes,
would love to learn more from people in the community or anyone who's listening to this. If you have a comment, please let us know. How do you deal with
please.
your triggers in the moment if you can't remove yourself? That would
Yeah,
be great.
yeah.
I
And
would
if
love
there's
to
people
learn.
who have questions and they want us to talk again about this and expand, we can try that too.
Definitely.
Mhm.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap today. Carrie, this is great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.